let's go ahead and get started with the episode. So, it's funny because when you look at the conspiracy iceberg, there's a ton of stuff on there. And you see these and you're like, oh, wow, that looks interesting. English travel. Oh, that looks interesting. Medieval found footage. One of them was something called The Legend of Callow Pit, or Kalos Pit. This was actually on the conspiracy iceberg. I was like, oh, I'll look that up. The Treasure of Callow Pit is actually what it was called. I look it up, and I immediately regretted spending just 5 minutes even looking at it, because it is an old folktale about these two dudes in Britain, and there's this bog. And you're like, Jason, if you didn't want reading it, why are you reading it to us? Okay, I'll skip to the ending. Two dudes are in Britain, there's a bog, there's a bunch of water in it, and a bunch of gross stuff. One day the bog is a little bit lower, so they said, hey, let's pull a treasure out of there. Okay, I don't know why they thought there's treasure down there. They stick a hook down there, they reach in, they grab a treasure chest, they pull the hook up, they pull the treasure chest up, and they get it, and they go, not even old Nick can get it from us now. Sounds like a weird thing to say. Did they say that all the time? Like, they're at Dairy Queen, they order a sundae, it's handed, not even old Nick can get this now. But anyways, they say that, and then the devil comes out of the pit, grabs the box of gold, or whatever was in it, yanks it back down. The little hook thingy, not the hook thingy, the little, what's that thing called? The little ring on the treasure chest, that you lift it by? Handle, I guess was the word I was looking for. The handle breaks off, and then that handle was used as the knocker on the church door. The end. Why is that on the conspiracy iceberg? That more than anything made me a little like, maybe this iceberg's not good. Maybe this is just a bad thing altogether. But it's on the iceberg. I wanted to get that out there. But from finding the Kalos Pit, I found a website that was nothing but folk stories. Now, I really liked my Taily Poe episode about folk stories. I know I actually said I was going to do this story second, but I've already started doing it. So, while I was looking for Kalos Pit and being disappointed, I found a website of folk stories, and some of them are flat out bizarre, which makes sense because they're folk stories. They're passed around, people are making stuff up all the time. They're kind of trying to teach a lesson more than anything. But I found this story, and I was like, what the hell is going on in this story? I was constantly being shocked by just how ridiculous it could get. I was just constantly being like, what is going on in this story? This is the story, and I had never heard it before. I don't think anyone's ever heard it before, but I could be wrong on that, because halfway through the story, I realized they were in a totally different location than where I thought they were originally at. And you'll see what I mean. This is the story of the blind boy and the loon. Wonk, wonk, wonk. Like a bird, loon, not like a lunatic running through the woods, capturing children and blinding them. There's a blind boy, his sister, and his stepmom. And they're all living together. The blind boy is an amazing hunter. He hunts on sound and smell and possibly taste if the creature is close enough. But he can't see him. So he's like the daredevil of hunting. And his stepmom hated his guts. Absolutely couldn't stand the kid. Now, I don't know how old any of the people are in this story, but I'm going to assume, I kept picturing the boy and the girl, probably like late teens, maybe, but I could be wrong. Late teens, the stepmom, we'll say she's 30. She's probably a MILF. Okay, so that's the setup. So a picture where you think that story took place. I thought it took place in merry old England. Or maybe, maybe Sweden or something like that. But a place with trees and a forest, and you're a hunter, right? Then, after the whole just set up the family dynamic, I get to this sentence. One day in spring, when food was short and when the ice in the window was melted, a huge bear smelling meat attacked the ice hut. What? If it's going to take place in Eskimo land, or it's going to take place in a place where people live in ice, tell me that. In the beginning, say, there was a cold wintry day in Eskimo land. Like, don't start me off picturing, like, a gingerbread house and a bunch of people living in it, and then all of a sudden I realize their house is melting. Like, that is a plot point that's going on. Their ice in the window was melted. I guess that could be the ice, like, well, it doesn't matter because they live in an ice hut. Anyways, this giant bear shows up, just starts trashing the place. And the boy's blind, so actually, why didn't he smell the bear coming? Because he's a super hunter. Beating the house up, bear's trying to get in the house. The stepmom gives the boy the bow and says, kill the bear, kill it. It's going to destroy all of us. It's going to kill us. This is so funny. So the blind boy is able to find his target, and he shoots the bear with the arrow. And the stepmom kills the bear. Stepmom says, you missed, and you shot our dog. Leave now. Get on, leave. That was my favorite dog. I liked him more than you. She kicks the blind boy out. She exiles him, right? And the blind boy, later on in the story, the blind boy's thinking, wait a second. Dogs don't make a huge noise when they fall to the ground. He's like, I'm pretty sure I killed that bear. I'm pretty sure I heard 800 pounds hit the ground, but my stepmom kicked me out of the house. She said that I shot the dog instead. So how big was their dog would be another part of this story I want to know detail of. The little boy's kicked out, right? He goes to another snow house, and they're specifically being called snow houses, so we do know it's somewhere in, the Arctic. And they have dogs down there, I guess, and bears? Not polar bears? I don't know. He goes to another snow house, and he's blind. Remember, this is a key point. He's blind. The new house he goes to is abandoned, and it's dirty and smelly. He's like, oh my god, now, first off, how smelly can ice get? Secondly, if you're blind, blind, how do you know it's dirty? You can have daredevil senses, but I don't think he's, rearranging he's straightening people's pictures. Sure, if you trip on a soda can, you're like, well, that's weird. I'm in the middle of a living room. There's a soda can here. But you walk into our house, and it's dirty. And I will say, if ice doesn't smell, imagine how smelly something would have to be for you to smell it on the snow. Anyways, he's in this house. He's like, this sucks. I wish I was back home, even though my stepmom hated me. I'm pretty sure I did shoot that bear. And I miss my sister. Oh, and I guess I should add this too. She didn't kick him out of the house. And he just, walked to this other snow house. She basically dragged him there and then abandoned him so he couldn't find his way back. So quite cruel. Quite cruel woman. But a MILF. Actually, she could be a kilf, an ice... Never mind, that's stupid. Okay, so he sent it home. Now, back at his house, in his old house, his stepmom and his sister were eating a bunch of bear meat. And she's like, oh, that was a great plan. Now I have one less mouth to feed. Me and this girl have all this bear meat. But the sister really misses her brother, so she begins sneaking him out bear meat. And it's so funny because this is part of the story, I'm not making this part up, shows up at the boy's house, the hunter's house. It says, Hunter boy, blind brother, I have brought you some food. I know you must be starving. Here, eat this. And he eats it, and he immediately recognizes the taste of bear meat. And he's like, I knew it! That's stupid! I knew it! But here's the thing. Why didn't the sister just walk in and be like, hey, you did shoot the bear. Here's some bear meat. Why did she leave that detail out? She knew why he got kicked out. What if she had to sit there and she has a big smirk on her face that he can't see? And she's like, I wonder if he can tell what it is. I wonder if she'll think we're eating the dog. She should have just said something. The sister begins bringing him out food. They probably had sex. I'm just saying, you're up in the middle of nowhere. It's ice huts. You need to stay warm. They probably banged each other. But anyway, so the sister keeps bringing the brother food. And he's still stuck there. Now, why the sister didn't take him back... the reason why I'm kind of going through this is this... I should cut to the chase here. This story has absolutely no moral. Why someone would tell this legend to their kids... I mean, take the incest part out that I just made up, but why they would tell it. I'm going to start cutting to the chase. He's stuck at the house. There's a lake nearby. He's really depressed, and he thinks, I'm just going to kill myself. And right when he's thinking about that, a loon, a big old bird, jumps out of the water and goes, what's wrong with your eyes? Straight to the point. What's wrong with your eyes? And he's like, well, I'm blind. And the bird's like, tell you what. This is something, maybe the loon is lunatic. This is something that a serial killer or cult leader would do. Bizarre trial. The loon says, tell you what, I can give you your vision back. But you got to grab onto me, and I'm going to dive as deep as I can into the water. And you got to hold your breath the whole time. Can't breathe. I got to do it 3 times, too. It's not just one thing. So if you happen to die while we're doing this, then, I'm going to have a little blind boy for lunch. I'm a carnivore bird. So anyways, holds on to his neck. They go super deep in the water, come up to the surface. Little boy's like, oh, I can see light. And then they go back to the bottom and then come up. And the boy's like, I can see shapes. And then they go back super deep. The kid's like turning blue. He's starting to see the light. He's starting to see the Lord come through the clouds at him. And he's like, oh, that's weird. He comes back up. He can see everything. So now he realizes that he's cured. He goes back to his old house, bow and arrow in hand. And the first thing he realizes when he walks through the door is how messy that house was. So apparently, I guess one of the moral of the stories is clean your house, because you don't know when blind people will show up, or when blind people will get their vision back. Oh, and the Loon says, don't tell the stepmom you got your vision back. It'll be super hilarious if you don't tell her you got your vision back. He shows back up at the house and he's like, hey, I found my way back here. Then he looks over at his sister and his sister kind of bites her lip and yeah, my brother's back. So anyways, the stepmom's like, good, because we need more food. That dog only fed us for 4 months and she's wearing a bearskin gloves. There's a bearskin rug on the floor. She's like, oh, those are just dogs. Those are just big giant dogs. Let's go hunt whales. So they go out to the ocean. What is going on in the story? They go to the ocean and there's a giant whale and a little whale swimming by. And again, he's still pretending he's blind. So he's bumping into stuff. And she said, shoot that little whale. I'll help aim your bow. Shoot the little whale. We can't shoot the big whale out there. And then we'll drag it to shore and eat it. So apparently now these people aren't just Eskimos, but they're Nephilim. They're basically 10 feet tall superhuman giants who can drag whales to shore. The blind boy's still pretending he's blind. He goes to shoot the little whale. Her plan to drag it back to shore is she's going to wrap the rope around her waist. Now you see where this is going. She wraps the rope around her waist, and they're going to shoot the little whale, which still has to be 4 tons. Shoot the little whale, and then she'll brace it, and they'll drag it onto shore, which at that point she'll probably say, oh no, our dog was swimming, and you shot that instead. Anyways, pulls back the arrow, and the Loon shows up, grabs the arrow, flies it farther out to sea, and puts it on the big whale, and the big whale takes off and drags the stepmom, clawing and screaming into the water. She says, help me, you need me, you're blind, you can't help yourself, you need me. And the blind boy turns to her and he goes, I'm not blind anymore. No! Stepmom gets dragged out to sea. Who is that story for? There's no moral lesson. What's the moral lesson? Don't be blind? Talk to talking birds who tell you to drown 3 times? What is the moral of that story? I don't get it. And I read that and I'm thinking there's so many bizarre details in it. Plus, there's no real redemption. He just found a magical way to get his vision back, and then he murders somebody. Then he goes home and bangs his sister. Now, yes, I did add in the incest subplot. Makes it a little more interesting. But I was just like, who is this story intended for? Which made it perfect for me to waste 16 minutes telling you about it. I love that story, though. I love that story. They should make a movie based on that. They could have, who would we cast as the blind boy? Never mind, I've wasted enough time on this story. But you know what, Iceberg Conspiracy Theory list? This is what you deserve. Don't put stupid stuff on there like Callow Pit, because then I have to start reading about blind boys banging their sisters. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.